Picture this. You boot up your computer, you decide it is finally time to take your privacy seriously. You are sick of being tracked, so you uninstall Chrome. You download Brave, or Edge, or Opera, or Vivaldi, or Arc. You turn on the strict privacy shields, you block the trackers, and you sit back, feeling incredibly smart. You think you've just beaten the system. You go on YouTube and watch highly produced documentaries from massive creators. People who tell you that the internet is built on a beautiful, open source project called Chromium. They tell you it is a community effort. They tell you that while Google built it, it belongs to everyone. They look you straight in the eye and say, there is no clear villain here. Rebi is doer. Or at least, that is the beautiful lie they sold you. What these creators are deliberately softening, what they are desperately trying to frame as a convenient accident, is actually the most silent, cold-blooded, and effective digital takeover in human history. You think you made a choice when you downloaded Brave or Samsung Internet, but the terrifying reality is you never left Google's cage. Right now, in 2026, over 85% of the planet is actively being forced into a massive digital bottleneck. Google doesn't just track your searches anymore. They own the fundamental bedrock of the internet, and they prefer you never understand how it works. This is the Chromium Trap. To understand how you were trapped, we have to rewind the clock. We have to go back to the 1990s, when the internet was barely taking shape. In 1993, Mosaic appeared. It was the first graphical browser that made the internet usable. Out of that came Netscape, and by 1995, Netscape controlled 90% of the entire market. It was the absolute gateway to the digital world. Then, Microsoft saw the power of that gateway, and they went into full war mode. They launched Internet Explorer. It wasn't a better browser, but they bundled it for free with Windows 95. What followed was the first great browser war. Microsoft won it using ruthless tactics that resulted in massive antitrust lawsuits. But it worked. By 2002, Internet Explorer held a staggering 96% of the market. And then, Microsoft made a fatal mistake. With a pure monopoly, they simply stopped innovating. Internet Explorer 6 sat untouched for 5 years. The internet was evolving, and Microsoft did not care. But in 2004, Firefox arrived, fast, packed with tabs and extensions, and running on open source code. In just 4 years, Firefox stole 28% of the market. Microsoft's grip was crumbling, and it was in that exact moment that Google panicked. Google had a massive problem. They were building Gmail, Google Maps, and Google Docs. These heavy applications needed incredibly powerful browsers with lightning-fast JavaScript engines, and the browsers of that era were choking. If nobody else was going to build the engine Google needed, Google realized they had to build it themselves. On September 2nd, 2008, Google launched Chrome. It was a weapon. Its V8 JavaScript engine was between 10 and 15 times faster than Internet Explorer 7. The effect was immediate. In less than 4 years, Chrome went from zero to the absolute king of the internet. But alongside Chrome came something else. Something that went almost entirely unnoticed by the public: Chromium. And here is the first psychological trick Google plays on you. Chrome and Chromium are not the same thing. Chromium is the open source foundation. It is the raw engine published under a free license. Anyone can download it, study it, and build their own browser on top of it. It sounds like pure transparency and freedom. But Chrome, the product Google pushes to billions of users, is loaded with dark layers on top of that foundation. Integrated Google services, account synchronization, and aggressive telemetry that constantly feeds your data back to Google's advertising systems. If you download pure Chromium, there is no Google telemetry by default. So, why did Google give this incredible engine away for free? Because it was a masterclass in strategy. If the code is open, other developers improve it for free. But more importantly, if everyone else builds on Google's engine, the entire ecosystem of the internet grows around Google's rules. Chromium became the infrastructure that made it literally impossible for anyone else to compete. Let's look at the actual architecture. When Chrome launched, it didn't even use a Google engine. It used WebKit, the engine Apple developed for Safari. For a while, Google and Apple shared this core. But in 2013, Google made a decision that permanently fractured the architecture of the web. They announced they were going to fork WebKit. They took the code, split off, and created their own independent engine. They called it Blink. The move was technically brilliant. Without Apple holding them back, Google moved Blink at a terrifying speed. The internet suddenly split into two main technical branches: Blink from Google and WebKit from Apple. And in the background, Mozilla Firefox maintained its own independent engine, RescueSEs. To put it simply, the internet is a massive city. Browsers are the cars driving through it. Blink is the engine design that almost every car uses. If Google designs the engine, Google decides what kind of roads the cars can drive on. Google decides the fuel. Google sets the speed limits, and if 80% of the cars use Google's engine, the road builders are going to design the entire city specifically for them. The rest of the industry looked at this and they surrendered. Microsoft, after decades of building their own engines, Trident and Edge HTML threw in the towel in 2018. They scrapped everything and rebuilt Microsoft Edge on Chromium. Opera, the massive Norwegian innovator, abandoned their Presto engine in 2013 and surrendered to Chromium. Vivaldi, Chromium. Samsung Internet, Chromium. Arc, Chromium. DuckDuckGo on desktop, Chromium. Kiwi, Chromium. And yes, even Brave, the browser that aggressively markets itself as the ultimate anti-Google privacy shield. It has its own crypto reward system, it blocks trackers, but under the hood, it is running on a Google engine. It is like building a rebel car, but you are still forced to drive on Google's asphalt. Building a browser engine from scratch is astronomically expensive. Firefox has spent hundreds of millions of dollars over 20 years keeping Gecko alive. For everyone else, it was easier to just take Google's free engine. And once Google had everyone trapped on their engine, they started flexing their power. Between 2018 and 19, Google introduced AMP, Accelerated Mobile Pages. They promised it would make the web incredibly fast on phones. Sounds great, right? The catch was terrifying. AMP pages were physically hosted on Google's own servers, not the original websites. The New York Times, the BBC, their articles were loading from google.com. It wasn't an improvement. It was a massive centralization of the internet into Google's hands. Then came the death of third-party cookies. Cookies were the old files that tracked you from site to site. When Google announced Chrome was killing third-party cookies, people celebrated the end of cross-site tracking. But wait, what was Google's replacement? A system called FLoC, Federated Learning of Cohorts. Instead of hundreds of different advertising companies tracking you, FLoC processed your entire browsing history directly inside the browser itself. The Electronic Frontier Foundation called it a nightmare. Google wasn't eliminating tracking, they were consolidating it. Instead of 100 companies having your profile, now only Chrome processes your history. They eliminated the competition and centralized the surveillance network exclusively into their own hands. They eventually replaced FLoC with the Topics API, but the sinister pattern remains exactly the same. If you still doubt that Google weaponizes Chromium to protect their profits, look at 2023. Look at Manifest v3. Manifest v3 was a massive forced update to the API that controls how browser extensions work. Google claimed it was for security and privacy, but the reality, Manifest v3 deliberately changed how extensions intercept web traffic, a direct lethal strike against ad blockers. uBlock Origin, the most popular ad blocker on Earth with tens of millions of users, was crippled. They had to release a stripped-down version because the new rules of Chromium simply do not allow them to operate freely anymore. Let's do the math. Google generates over 75% of its revenue from advertising. Google controls 65% of the global browser market. Ad blockers are the single biggest threat to their survival. So, they used Chromium to literally rewrite the laws of physics on the internet. They actively limited the exact tools that protect you from their ads. And because Edge, Brave, Opera, and Vivaldi all rely on Chromium, they are all dragged down with it. This is the massive irony of the modern internet. Chromium is genuinely open source. Google didn't point a gun at anyone's head. Microsoft, Brave, and Opera made rational, logical decisions to use a free, powerful engine. But the sum of those logical decisions created a concentration of power that serves absolutely nobody, except Google. Next time someone tells you they use Brave to escape Google, you now know the dark truth. The engine running under every single page they open is Google's. It is a monopoly not built by force, but built by absolute dependency. So, how do you escape? There are only two lifeboats left: Safari, which uses WebKit, but locks you inside the Apple ecosystem, and Firefox. Firefox and its Gecko engine is the only major, independent holdout left on the entire planet. It is the only engine not controlled by an advertising syndicate. Downloading a Chromium clone is an illusion. Switching to an independent engine is the only real rebellion left. We don't do sponsored soft talk here. We expose the raw, unfiltered architecture of the internet that the algorithm tries to hide. If you want to stay awake, if you want to understand the active war happening inside your devices, hit that subscribe button right now. Change your browser, stay paranoid, stay vigilant, and we will see you in the next investigation.